Before we get into today's live NFL mailbag, if you want us to be live for NFL free agency, do us a favor. Like the video so we can show the bosses it is a key priority for us. First up from Chulor, what trade packages can the Niners get from trading Deebo Samuel? It's a good question. His contract isn't great, and I don't think the Niners want to eat a bunch of that money. That's why, much like Cooper Kupp, I wouldn't be shocked if a release happened. I think there is the possibility of that. So I would not be surprised if it ends up being just a day 3 pick. A team like Pittsburgh comes in and says, we'll give you our 4, some conditional pick or another late round pick tacked onto it. I don't think because of the decline in play, the age, the fact that he's kind of built like me a little bit right now, which I don't mean in a positive sense, and the contract means the value is a lot lower than what it would normally be. Ray Foreman, no way the Texans trade for DK Metcalf, right? I honestly wouldn't say no way. I would be a bit surprised in large part because I think DK Metcalf wants an extension. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't think he wants to play under just the 1 year remaining. Now, Stephon Diggs was okay with that, and maybe it didn't work out the best for Stephon Diggs, frankly, coming off the injury. But I would think that DK wants an extension, and with what the Texans have coming / committed already, I don't think they want to spend, top-end money on Nico Collins and potentially top-end money on DK Metcalf. Not like top of the market, but still pretty high up there. So, impossible? No. Likely? Probably also no. Adam Dent, do we know if the NFL salary cap will go up again this year? It is not official. It is not set in stone, but the consistent expectation is yes, the salary cap is going to go up. And that'll probably go up to somewhere in the ballpark of $273-ish million. Could be a little bit plus or minus. The exact number has not yet been announced by the NFL. We'll know it before free agency. All this, like the team sites you use for cap numbers, whether it's Spotrac, Over the Cap, etc., they all factor in that rough projected rise. Could be a bit higher, could be maybe a little bit lower, probably not by a lot, but it will go up, and it will continue to go up pretty much every single year by 15 to 20 million, if not more. Stevie Drake, how about Matthew Stafford to the Giants? I would not be surprised as we get into the combine and out of the combine if we hear more about a Matthew Stafford trade. I get the vibe the Rams don't want to commit big money long-term to him. He's older and got injury issues, which is fine. A team like the Giants, for example, is a prime destination to be like, we're going to try to win now, save our jobs. We won't burn the first-round pick on a QB. We'll get something else in there. We'll have a veteran option, try to save our jobs, draft someone on day 3. I think it makes a lot of sense, unless the Rams say, no, we're just going to pay him. I think Stafford would rather be in L.A., but I think he wants some more long-term security too. So predictions. Will the Rams trade Matthew Stafford? Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. From Vincent, running back, free agent options for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Honestly, it is not a great group of free agents. It's kind of a mediocre option of like Najee Harris is probably one of the top 5 guys, and I think he's very just like good-ish. Do you want to break the bank for a J.K. Dobbins coming off the injury? Probably not. Aaron Jones is still a good one. Rico Dowdle, I know Jalon Warren is a restricted free agent, so he'll be back probably. I think maybe you draft somebody for Pittsburgh. I think Cam Scatterbo and Jalon Warren, that could work. Skylar Lee, I'm hoping Carolina signs Nakobe Dean and Isaiah Simmons in NFL free agency. Isaiah Simmons has been kind of a pretty big disappointment for me. I really thought he was going to be a special NFL player, and turns out the accusations of him being a jack of all trades and master of none ended up being true. I will say Nakobe Dean is under contract this upcoming year, so he's not a free agent. Maybe you mean Zack Baun, the other Eagles linebacker. But I do think getting more linebacker help is a priority for Carolina. Villa, what are the best moves for the Falcons? Defense help, fine. beg someone to take Kirk Cousins' contract and not pay all of it out. You don't want to cut him because you just need so much money, but you would love to find a trade partner, save some money, but there's no real leverage for Atlanta because everyone knows they're done with Kirk, and it's just kind of a mess. I think upgrading that defense, getting some pass rush help, the thing you could have used a lot this past year. That's, I think, number one priority is upgrade that pass rush, keep working on the defense, and then develop Michael Penix. You do that, everything feels a lot better about last offseason. Jeremy Williams, does Davante just follow Aaron Rodgers again? Maybe. Can't rule it out. I think it depends on where Rodgers goes. Like, I don't know if Adams wants to go somewhere and kind of like, hypothetically, does he want to go like follow Aaron Rodgers to the only team that wanted Rodgers, and it's like he signs a cheap one-year deal with the Titans or something? Like, is that what Davante Adams wants? I don't think so. I think he'd be more inclined to go back out to the West Coast. I think Chargers make sense. I think the Niners, if they move on from Deebo and still want to throw some assets to wide receiver, could be a sneaky option as well. I don't think he's going to just follow Rodgers. Depends on, in the end, I think, where Rodgers go, and that would be a real candidate in the end. So where does Davante Adams play in 2025? Let me know in the comments section of today's video. From Harry, what is your ideal and realistic player to draft at 12 for the Cowboys? The ideal for me is someone like Ted McMillan or Ashton Genty, even if you're okay with taking a running back that early. I get not everyone is. Fall to 12, you take a top 10 guy on I think my board and probably their board, and you are very happy with it. Realistically, I kind of like a trade down idea, but if you get kind of picked over, the trade down makes more sense. Otherwise, like, I'm okay reaching for a guy that I am higher on, whether that's like a Luther Burden or one of the offensive linemen like Armand Membu. A lot of it depends on how that board plays out, but maybe you get lucky and someone really good falls to you. From Mad Rummer, I think the Saints will get at number 9. It's a good question. I think a lot depends on what happens this offseason with the Saints. Do they embrace what I think they should embrace, which is it's time to rebuild? Hire the young coach, the first-time head coach, give him time, kind of get your books in order for the first time in a long time and not have to be so constantly aggressively restructuring deals, take some bad money, eat some dead cap, whatever, and focus on the future and take probably maybe a more aggressive developmental guy like a Micah Williams if you want an edge, or a Mike Green if you want one of those, or if you want to take Ted McMillan or Genty or whatever. I think you just trade down would be great too. I think there will be a good player for the Saints. They've spent a lot of assets, I know, in recent years on that offensive line, on that defensive line. With this class, I'd probably invest in it again. And I frankly look at edge almost more than anything, or corner. I think Will Johnson makes a ton of sense for them. You trade Marshawn Lattimore. You have some young pieces. Let's get another number 1 guy there. Today's show, got a deal for you guys. It's Fanatics jerseys, NFL jerseys, rookies included. If you go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey, you will see all of the NFL jerseys currently available. Spoiler alert, it will be a lot of Eagles jerseys because it's sorted by like the most popular sellers and biggest rises in sales because they won a Super Bowl. So you might have to filter by your team, but that's fine. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Ray Foreman, what contracts could the Texans restructure and create a decent amount of cap space? Let me pull it up here real quick for you guys. Texans restructure notable contract options are Laramie Tunsil, $10 million. This is just simple restructures, by the way. Daniil Hunter, 13. Titus Howard, 10. Nico Collins, 8. Shaq Mason, 6, who could also be a cut candidate, frankly. Azeez Al-Shaair, 6. Dalton Schultz, just under 5. Danico Autry, under 5. Just straight cuts right now. Shaq only saves 2. Danico saves 5. I think those are the main ones they'd consider. But that's a lot of like free up $10 million there, $10 million there, 8, 5, 5, 5. That adds up. And given the lack of overall contract investment, long term, I think you'll see Texans do just that. They'll have some money, but not as much as some other teams will have. A super chat from Poppy Chulo Sits. Is the back end of the draft as bad as advertised? So it depends what you mean by back end. Round 1, overall day 3, I'll break down both. in general, this round 1 class, there's a couple of studs that I like. And then someone you're taking the top 5, you feel better about taking top 10. And a lot of guys in the top 10, you feel better about top 15. And a lot of guys top 15, you feel more like they're back end of round 1 guys. And then like 15-ish, you're going to have a bunch of second round grades. The guy you take at like 20 is going to have very different opinions and very similar grades to a lot of guys that are going to go in the 40s. So there's not a ton of elite true round 1 talent. There's some good depth in kind of that second roundish round grades. And then when you get to day 3, it gets thin again. And a big factor in that is NIL and the COVID years. You're still feeling that impact where, hey, this guy was going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. He can get more going back to college for one more season. Or, hey, this guy's spent 4 years already, but he's got the COVID year too. Or the COVID year and the redshirt year and the injury year, which is a thing. I mean, Tyler Shuck is going to be like the top 7 quarterback drafted at minimum this year. He's 25 years old and spent 7 years in college. The man's a doctor. I know that is true, but he's spent long enough to be a doctor. That never would have happened in previous eras, but the NIL COVID era has changed things. And I think it's kind of led to less true talent in the back end. Not as many guys going pro early. Now, don't miss out on any of our NFL coverage here at Chat Sports. Hit that sub button for free videos each and every single day right here on the channel. Christian, what if the Steelers trade for Matthew Stafford, then get Cooper Kupp in free agency? I'll take it a step further. Who's to say they wouldn't just trade for both at the same time? Now, that's me getting kind of, borderline galaxy braining it, but getting both guys actually does make some sense. And I think Cooper Kupp fits well with George Pickens. Pickens is the outside guy. Kupp can do the dirty work underneath, over the middle stuff. I think that's actually a pretty good plan and kind of like commits Pittsburgh to what I think they should be doing, which is trying to go for it right now. They've got some older defensive pieces. There's still a lot of uncertainty at quarterback. I would not try to, have a 5-year plan. I'd have like a 2 or 3 year plan. A $5 super chat from Ruthless Monk. I think Houston will trade their first round for Trey Smith. I don't think anyone's trading for Trey Smith at that level of draft pick cost. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to tag him. The best case tag and trade is probably like a 3rd round pick for him because that's the normal comp pick impact anyway. Maybe it's even a little bit less since it's this year and not a year from now. Smith is awesome, but he's about to hit the open market. Teams will dare KC to tag him and try to trade him then. They're not going to move a first round pick for him. Henry, how do you think the Chicago Bears draft? You mean drafted or draft? I'm going to go draft this year because that's more entertaining. I think offensive line is going to be a key focal point. They take one in round 1, they take one in round 2. They've got some flexibility there, kind of across the board. I'm curious what players Ben Johnson wants to get. Do they look for another running back to pair or replace DeAndre Swift, since they kind of did that once already? I think defensively, front 4 talent is the main focal point too. Plus, maybe a corner or 2. Ralph Carson, will the Ravens trade Mark Andrews? I would not be surprised. I think the new team would owe what the Ravens save. That's about $11 million in the end. I don't know if a team wants to pay Mark Andrews at his age coming off that, but I do think the clock is ticking on Andrews' future, whether it's this year or a year from now or 2 years from now, of Andrews in Baltimore. So name a player who you think ends up getting traded. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. From Jim, could Rodgers go to the Titans? Remember reading that he bought a house in Tennessee. He might be a bridge QB for 1 year, and Titans get a QB next year. Your thoughts? It makes sense. I know he bought land. I'm not sure if he built the house yet or not in Tennessee, but I think that's going to be like his retirement home type of deal, which is weird to say about like a 40-something-year-old, but he's a pro football player, so it's fine. I think the logic makes sense if you see Tennessee willing to do that. There's a lot of fair or not baggage that comes along with Rodgers in the end. All right, Matthew Gillum, what are your best fits for Jalon Walker, the linebacker from Georgia? Now, I'll be honest, I think he's an edge. I think that is how you deploy him best. If you want to do some like spy games with him at linebacker, that's fine too. If you want to do some early down stuff, kind of like Frankie Luvo style, I think that also makes sense. So like the Commanders fit that role. I think a team like Carolina could actually be a pretty good fit for him and kind of let him be I think the best way to maximize Jalon Walker is kind of try to build your defense around him and try to go in knowing, okay, how do we maximize Jalon Walker? Same with the Cowboys, kind of with Micah Parsons. Not saying the same player, but I think that's kind of the vibe there. I think a place like Carolina, where it's Derek Brown and J.C. Horn, but front seven-wise, there's not a lot of like long-term pieces. I think that fits really well. And in a 3-4 base outside linebacker, I think Carolina really stands out as a good fit for me.